It's time for our next session. Get ready to learn, interact, and enjoy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel. My name is TJ Woodberry. I will be your moderator here with some really amazing women in technology and voice technology. So I am going to do a short little intro, and we will start with Anu.
Thank you, TJ. My name is Anu Shukla, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 5 companies, all venture-backed, all in MarTech or AdTech. My first company was a company called Rubric, that is a pioneer in the marketing automation space when people thought marketing automation was an oxymoron. At this point, I am the co-founder and executive chair and very actively involved in a conversational AI startup called Brodock.ai. In addition to that, I'm also an active angel investor through the Thai Angel Group here in Santa Clara. And I'm a venture partner with Elevate.VC. And we're on our second $50 million fund. And we basically fund only women and underrepresented founders from the African-American Latinx community. And I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you, Anu. I'm excited to learn more about your projects. Kate, would love to hear more about you.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Brodock. I am CEO of Switch, which was formerly Women 2.0. We have been around since 2006, and we have a heavy focus on gender and representation in the tech startup spaces. We have several lines of programming that focuses on helping founders grow their companies. And we also place a really strong importance on making sure that this big ecosystem that we are in also is moving in the right direction of supporting those amazing founders. And additionally, we try to focus on capital access. We have an angel group, et cetera. After doing years and years of work with thousands of founders on just about every part of their company, myself and my great partner, Allison Capon, who's run a similarly focused organization for a decade plus, started the W Fund, which is a VC fund that invests into early stage women and underrepresented led technology startups. So we are excited to be writing out some checks to some of these founders, and also I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kate, for that intro. Would love to pass the mic to Bianca. Bianca.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bianca. I currently lead growth and marketing for Airst. We deliver corporate training in the flow of work on tools like Slack, Teams, and WhatsApp. This is my 4th high growth startup, and I've learned a lot at different stages. I've worked in pre-seed, seed, Series A, and Series B. So lots of different types of experiences and things like that. I also do a little bit of advising and digital marketing for the Players Impact. Those are professional athletes who have a technical product they like to bring to market. I'm teaching them everything from GTM to PR, brand awareness, how to put a pitch deck together and things like that. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to learning more about you all.
Thanks, Bianca. Wow. It sounds like y'all are all involved in some really amazing funds and funding opportunities really focused on women. So we're all kind of in line there. But I would love to learn more about your story. We can start with you, Kate. Tell us a little bit more about your story, about how you got started as a founder, as a funder, and a little bit more about your professional background. What kind of inspired you to join this space?
Yeah, straight out of undergrad for me, and this was back when it was not the cool thing to leave college and go into the startup space. My parents thought I was nuts, but that really being right in that space, first of all, got me super excited about technology, about startups, et cetera. And I'm not really one to sit on my laurels. So I got pretty involved just in the general kind of startup community. At that time, events like all the sort of community stuff you can think of. And I started to have a really strong affinity towards the issues around representation and specifically around women in this space. And for several years, I was part of another global organization. I ran it as its president for a couple of years. When I resigned, they had about 60 chapters around the world. So that was really fantastic. And just as a small note, back in those days, I actually attended quite a number of Thai events in the Boston area. Just a little shout out there. And so it really sort of grew in parallel. I had sort of working as a practitioner in startups and then doing a lot of stuff, quote, on the side in terms of gender and representation. And I was able to bring those two together with Women 2.0. And I couldn't be happier. Now I'm able to, really wake up every day and focus on two areas that I absolutely love and find a lot of motivation and passion around. And then it's sort of, honestly, starting to invest was a pretty just sort of moment. When you're in it and around it and you start to have the capabilities and you have the deal flow, you have the investor relations, you have folks who want to start writing out their own checks. The fund was a really just literally a why didn't we do this 5 years ago?
Yeah.
So here we are.
That's wonderful. I love that story. And it's always nice when things come together organically too. So that's wonderful. But I'm excited to learn more about Women 2.0 and kind of how you got there. And also players impact, like Bianca, how did you get started with that work? Like what kind of got you involved in this space? How'd you end up here?
Yeah, sure thing. So I actually studied sport management in college. I was a Make-A-Wish kid. And so I was really, really sick and then got a MacBook and I was like, okay, I'm gonna teach myself some type of technical skill that I can bring to the world. A trip to Disney World would have been awesome, but not really something that I could take with me for the rest of my life. So I was planning for the best outcome and I'm glad that I did. So with that, ended up being an internship with the United States Olympic Committee, worked for the Pyeongchang Olympic Games, the Rio Olympic Games, and also a little bit into Tokyo. So that was super cool. Got to learn a lot about the athletes. Did digital marketing, so creating like athlete biographies and things like that. But then I found myself in a world where I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis during the internship and I couldn't walk for 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, you have to find something that you can do that does not require you to move. And so I had a really awesome mentor at the time. Her name's Lisa Baird. She kind of said like, hey, you need to go to technology. Like you can see the impact your work has in real time. It's going to move really quickly and you're going to get a lot of redemption. You're going to be excited and you're going to work on a lot of people that are highly energized. And so with that, ended up getting a job at Facebook. Went to Silicon Valley, lived in Mountain View, did the whole, San Jose Caltrain thing. It was awesome. Loved all the different restaurants. It was super exciting, but something in me was telling me like, hey, you could probably make something similar to Facebook. Like maybe you can stay here and work and you can reap all of the benefits, but what would happen if you actually went back to the ground level and created something new? And so that's kind of what sparked the startup bug. Went to different startups. One of them was Bot Society. It was a conversational AI company. It was super cool. And that was the first time I actually learned about what technology was. Like I came from a low income background myself, grew up in Houston, Texas. I didn't know what VC was. I didn't know what startups were. I was just in this space where these people looked really excited about the work that they did. And I wanted to get into that. And so with that, I joined a lot of different startups, really enjoyed them, really enjoyed working with the people, and then wanted to get back to sports. And so eventually had an interest in sports marketing, delivering like a technical product for athletes. Eventually the LA Olympics will be in LA in 2028. And so I wanted to be able to create a product to bring to market before then. So along the way, had met a ton of like talented entrepreneurs and stuff and kind of came in contact with the Players Impact. And so they're a specialized VC just for professional athletes or Olympians who have an idea, they're done playing sports professionally and now they want to be an entrepreneur. And I thought that was a perfect middle ground for me to fall into. And it's been a really, really rewarding experience.
That's so fascinating. And I immediately connect with your origin story too, because I'm in Tulsa right now, which is having like a huge kind of like tech moment and VC moment. And all of this was happening around me. And I'm like, that's kind of what got me inspired in investing in VC, because I'm like, what's going on? So that's really fascinating. Would love to learn some more about your origin story, Anu. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking to myself. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your story. Right after doing my master's, my MBA in Ohio, actually, I came to Silicon Valley because I knew somebody who knew somebody, and I got a job with a startup in the chip industry, believe it or not. It's my first and last, semiconductor company that I worked for. But it was a very good experience for me. It was a small company, about 100 people in the company. And in the time that I was their first marketing hire, and the company actually within 18 months went public. I was written up in the red herring, did the road show in New York, and it was just amazing experience for me. Coming as an immigrant and just going to college in a small little town, and then coming and doing this in the Valley, I was pretty sold. I was then sort of fortunate enough to work with teams, and all of the 3 or 4 companies I worked for went public or got acquired. So finally, and I was the VP of marketing and products. At the end of this journey, I ended up working for the 7th largest software and services company in the US at that time. They bought my smaller company, which was for about 500 million, and that I was part of the team. And I said, I think I'm ready to do this myself. And so I was known to be a pretty good VP of marketing. I had developed tools to help me do my job, which included calculating the ROI. And the one thing that I do take credit for inventing was what which is now known as email drip marketing or lead nurturing. But I did that, and I turned it into software. I think one of the first companies that turned it into software in a marketing automation suite. The company was called Rubric. I went out and raised VC money from Sand Hill Road. We raised about $13.6 million. Within 19 months, the company was acquired for about $433 million. And so I was pretty sold on this whole startup experience. And I went ahead and I started 3 or 4 different companies. One of my companies was just acquired in January of this year. And I started this company like a really long time ago. It's a company called Tapjoy. And it's in the mobile ad tech space. So they just got acquired. So sometimes these things happen very quickly, like in 2 years. And sometimes the journey is much longer. And so I really liked startup ecosystem. I think what really helped me was networking and joining a whole bunch of women's groups. And I found women to be very supportive. And so then this last company, Brodock AI, I have a women co-founder in there as well. And I'm really enjoying working with her, being the executive chairman and letting her, sort of run the show and participating in that at the same time. And so along the way, I've obviously had a little bit of discretionary cash, so started to invest in companies. I really like the charter for Elevate.VC. All the companies I've funded so far, other than one. Well, only one has been, all of them have been minority founders and segments, and most of them, 90% of them are women. So I'm trying to walk the walk here.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And I love how you and Kate both had gotten into VC just kind of as a, like, yeah, obviously, duh. Kate, I'd love to know I think I have an idea, but what it is that you really love about your work, what makes you really excited to do the work that you do?
Yeah, this is a loaded question. Honestly, at the base level, a major thing that just drives me is the human position. and justice and fairness. And so when you start seeing what's happening around you and you start understanding those issues and how they're playing out, those are the types of things that I gravitate to and always have gravitated to most strongly. And so really at the end of the day, it's a long slog. We're not even close. This is a game of drops and decades. But it's really important. And I think at the base level, that is the thing that really drives me. A little bit more practically, having focused on this area now for 15 plus years, it is nice and motivating to see where we have made progress. A lot of areas where we haven't, but this progression from when I was starting out, we're talking about simply motivating and mobilizing small communities of women founders so they have affinity. We were hardly even talking about things like capital access, right? Mm-hmm. And then you move through sort of that general social movement of community building, and then the issues start happening, and then the ball starts rolling. So it is very motivating to see the progress that has been made. And especially in the past couple of years, I do think that there has been a significant shift in the urgency around a lot of these conversations that maybe wasn't there 10 years ago for perfectly fine reasons. Because again, we're talking about a decades-long social movement here. So those are I think, really great. And then, you know what, when you wake up and you open up the quote newspaper and you see, we've got women founders exiting now, we've got funding starting to flow. We could talk about those stats later because some of them are moving backwards, but that's neither here nor there. And we are like the capital and the important stuff is starting to move, and that is crucial. On the investing side, last point, it is exciting to me to see all of the new emerging funds starting now. In 20 years, those new funds are going to be running the VC space. Mm-hmm. And that is going to trickle down, and that's going to make a huge impact. So I sort of take the long term on this, but we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And I see sort of a theme here, and that we're all kind of interested in investing and uplifting the voices of underestimated founders. And so I'd love to hear some more, Bianca, about the work that you do and kind of what motivates you and drives you to want to stay in this field.
Yeah, sure thing. So when I joined Arist, we literally had $0 in MRR. Like we made no money. So it's been really, really cool to see the speed of growth and just how fast people are getting excited and giving that buy-in. I think when you work on the B2C side, it's a little bit different than working with like enterprise companies. To be a very young company and to get like executive buy-in at some of like Fortune 500 companies can be really challenging. But to see that happen and see people get excited and buy into a new idea is really what gets me excited about my work. I work specifically in learning. And so when you think about learning and think about how we've learned over the last 10 to 15 years, specifically in the corporate setting, you've had to go into like a learning management system, or you've had to download an application, or you've had to like adhere to what your company standards were. And so we get to go into these companies and say, hey, like all of these apps that you've created, all of these different tools that you purchased, maybe the solution is a lot simpler. Like maybe there's no external technology needed at all. Maybe it's just like the tools that we already have access to. And so like think about tools like Slack, WhatsApp, Teams, things like that. If you don't have internet access and you're on the other part of the world and you want to learn about cybersecurity, or you want to learn about, how to use AI safely, you can get a text message a day and it's a lot easier. And so I think just like increasing that accessibility to people who don't have it is really exciting. And then finding a way to make, the enterprise also get excited that there is also cool for me. So The impact work, as well as like, the redefining what enterprise training looks like, is a big challenge, but it's something that I'm super passionate about, and something that keeps me up every single day. I get excited to go to work. I love working on it. I love hearing the feedback from users and things like that, and just love hearing ideas about like the future of learning, outside of the company, outside of, startups and investing, like how can we make learning easier? Because that'll make it a lot easier for people to get into careers in tech, similar to like the ones that we're speaking about today.
I am just so fascinated with the impact work that you're doing, and also like just the movement that is happening with athletes and I guess kind of like musicians. Like Alicia Keys has a new $100 million or $1 billion fund, and anyway, it's wonderful. I'm so fascinated with it. So thank you for sharing. Anu, tell me about your about what it is that kind of like keeps you excited about this work.
Well, I really, I started off as a Thai angel, and I was just going and hearing pitches and things like that. And I just got fascinated by everybody's story and journey. And I really I got very interested in their companies and their products. And I really wanted to support them in this journey, mainly because I really liked the women founder or whoever the founder was. And I really liked their idea. Like I felt like I could help them, like I could add to it. Now I can't do every single deal that I look at, but I try to be helpful. If I ever meet with somebody, I learned this from Reid Hoffman. He always does that. Even if he doesn't fund you, he actually says, tell me 2 things I can do to help you. He's amazing investor and entrepreneur. So I always, even if I know I probably am not going to fund this because it's not in my understanding, I can't add value too much, I try to connect them with other angel investors, other VC groups, or potential customers. And it's really exciting to see them progress and grow. And I just get really, really excited. So this is why, and it keeps me, like you're in the company of like passionate, motivated people that are really believe in what they're doing, and they're creating value out of nothing, out of just an idea. And it just reminds me of something that I have done as a serial entrepreneur many times. And so I love mentoring them and I love helping them. And I recently, one of the companies that I'm working with, that I'm a personal investor in, but also Elevate is an investor. And they said something like best board member ever. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. So I really like it when I get that kind of feedback from them.
Yeah. And I love hearing like how you handle those situations too, because, we always want to support and elevate. And so for me as an investor, it's just really hard when I see the opportunity, or I see the founder and I see the passion, and I'm just like, this is amazing for you, but it's not investable for me at this point. So I love how you respond to that. So I'd also like to ask you, why do you think more women should consider investing? This is kind of like something I'm super passionate about too. But why do you think it's important for women to consider investing or becoming VCs or starting their own company? Why do you think that's important?
All of the above, right? So so I work for startups. Like I said, I work with multiple startup teams where I was not the founder. I was just part of the founding team, or just somebody that joined the management team after some time. And now that I have been a serial entrepreneur, I've done 5 companies, I realized that I'm never going to be unemployed or lacking for things to do. I can always create my own job. Okay. That's a great skill to have. You can create your own job where you can do things that you like, and at the same time, you can have fun and make money while having fun. And in fact, there's a huge upside in, a success in a sort of technology company. So this is why I would recommend that at some point when you're confident and you have an idea, a passion worth pursuing that you have vetted out, you can take the risk. You can take the risk, and it's very satisfying. And you can sort of dictate what kind of risk you want to take and where you want it to go based on your own time limits and interests. So everything doesn't have to be, a work 22 hours a day and get VC money and get a big exit. It can also be something that you enjoy doing where you are obviously getting what you want. You're getting the money, you're getting the growth you want, and you don't have to take VC money even, because obviously when you take VC money, there's an expectation of an outcome. And then you kind of driven to that, but you can take it your own way as well. So I find it very satisfying to be able to control your own destiny, right?
Yeah, I so agree with you too. And especially for me, I started my kind of entrepreneurial journey kind of as something that I had to do to get more freedom for myself and for my family. I was a single mom, and I do really think that getting more women involved in investing as well is a pathway to financial freedom. And so that's something. And I also think that if we want to fund more female founders, we have to have more women writing checks. And so I just in total agreement with you. Kate, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, there's so much research that says who's on the check writing side of the table really does, again, trickle over to that other side. So number one, that's it. I think number two, we've got for our fund, we've got a lot of what we like to call new money, which I think is really powerful. And you've got women who have, in their professional lives, become successful. And they've also, very likely have realized in one way or another what these dynamics mean and the impact that they have around them, right? And so when they become successful and they have assets in their hands, it all kind of comes together in this, what we've been talking about. These assets are in their hands. They want those assets to be put to work, which is great. That is where you get generational wealth building. That's when you getting like just decades, et cetera. And they realize that they really can. A lot of them are coming with a mission too. And so being able to take those assets and still have that doing a greater good focus on where those assets are going, I think is really powerful. In my opinion, those dollars can have a much greater economic impact when given to a really amazing founder than in some cases, for instance, being donated. And please, that is not a knock on nonprofits, so important in our system, but some of those dollars I am enjoying seeing shift over and still have that impact side of what they are doing, and also make people a heck of a lot of money while doing it. Because let's be honest, that's another really important part of this. We talk a lot about our fund is not an impact fund, and that is because every single one of these founders we're putting in, every founder like Bianca, et cetera, they are going to make businesses that are just as humanly powerful or more than any of the quote traditional startups that are out there. And that is an important piece.
Yeah. And I do agree with you too, that that the impact work, more of the female founders are pumping out like really impactful work. Bianca, for sure. I have a friend here who wanted to open a, not tech adjacent, but she wanted to open a coffee store in a coffee and bookshop in this like Black area of town where illiteracy was the highest in the whole state. And so she opened this Black focused bookshop and coffee shop. And been doing like wildly successful. So love the impact work. Bianca.
Yeah, sure thing. I think there's still so much we can do in terms of pipeline for female founders. And so like getting female founders excited early. I think right now, from what I've heard on this call, is just like there's a lot of people who discover this later in life. And so, you've worked in a company and you discovered this, or you've met someone that was amazing, and then your interest is piqued in, startups in VC. But like, what would happen if we have people that are in college or even before college getting interested? And I think there's so much that we can do for that. There's an amazing women's organization called Project W. It's 3 universities up in the Northeast. I think it's Babson, Wellesley, and Owen. And they're all just female founders who are interested in entrepreneurship at a very early age. I think that's exciting for me because like what happens like when you're like 5 or 6 years ahead of the curve and you have these cool stories that come out that are like, hey, this 21-year-old founder just got funded. They're making a big exit and it's not later in life. I just think like once we start to really develop that robust pipeline of female founders, things will get even more exciting. I'm so excited to hear everything that I'm hearing about like, the people that are making exits and, the different colors and, shades of people that I'm seeing that are making those exits. But I do want to see that, go all across the spectrum. And I think this is just the very beginning. There's still so much more that we can do. And the more success stories that we can create, the more type of network opportunities, in-person events are returning. That's a great opportunity to get in front of people and make those, connections on the ground. But I think, yeah, that pipeline thing is going to be awesome and something that I'm really looking forward to seeing over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I'll add one quick thing to that too on the investor side as well. It's exciting to see some of these quote alternative finance platforms that are popping up that do allow people to start investing or at least supporting startups on the check writing side earlier. So things like equity crowdfunding, where you don't have to write out a $25K check. You can come in with a little bit, or even crowdfunding. That allows people to get in the game a lot earlier and really move up that pipeline. There are also a lot of really cool, again, sort of on the investor side of what Bianca's talking about, but early and earlier, various just training around the space in general, and then also kind of like on the investor side as well. I've been heartened also by some of the recent SEC changes in allowing actual professionals inside VC firms to they can forego the previous barriers based on your wealth in order to make an accredited investment, and their association with those VC firms now allow them to do that. So again, some cool things starting up that do get that pipeline going on both sides of the table.
And that was a new rule too. That's actually really exciting because it does allow more accessibility for investors. So
it's still not perfect. I still don't understand why anybody can just pop on to like Robinhood and like spend their life savings on the stock market with zero anything, with like $1 in their pockets, and they can't make it. It blows my mind, but whatever, we're getting there.
I think that has a place. You just say if you look at a diversified portfolio theory, right? So as an investor, with a pool of money, you have to. There's room for a few different instruments depending on your risk profile. So the way I look at it, you could put things in the stock market. You can do slow, safe things like municipal bonds, tax beneficial, tax-free municipal bonds. You're trying to reduce tax. And then there's room for so real estate or annuities, life insurance, and venture money, right? So if you look at a diversified portfolio, there is a room. That's how VCs get their money, from endowments, which mostly put it in sort of safe, slow-growing things, and then they have some speculation money where they want higher returns, and they give it to VCs with track records. And so you can be the same. You can be the CEO of your own investment portfolio and say, I have this much, and I'm going to put it into venture is an important, could have a big return, right? And so I like to think of it that way as well. Like, here's my budget for investing.
Yeah. Yeah. I could talk to you ladies all afternoon. I know y'all have stuff to do. So we will wrap it up here. I'm going to pass it to Anu first to see if you have any like last minute final parting words. And also how can our guests follow along with you if they want to connect?
Absolutely. No, my final thoughts are it's very satisfying to be an entrepreneur. It's very satisfying if you are in that position or have interest to make funding women and funding venture as part of your personal growth, wealth growth strategy. It's really, I find it very satisfying and interesting. And so I would encourage all women to found companies and fund companies. Be a founder and a funder, right? And you can get hold of me. I'm on LinkedIn, but certainly my email is anu.shukla@botco.ai, and that's one of my emails that I'm very on top of it. And I'd love to hear from you. If there's any way I can be helpful, I'd be happy to.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anu. I'm going to pass the mic to Kate.
Yeah, thanks. And you brought kind of a good, I'll sort of close with a thought that's been around for a couple of years, but just even more important on this is that when you are looking to jump into starting a company or in your journey or anything, is really taking a look around you and understanding and connecting with folks who can really support you. Thinking about the idea of sponsorship alongside the idea of mentorship, both are super important. And again, connecting with some of the great women on panels like this, and really using, the community still works. It's still really powerful, and when you can use that to your advantage in a really positive win-win way, that I think is going to be your best bet. So thanks for having me. You can reach me on, I'm on Twitter, just_Kate. Email is kate@switchthefuture.com. And LinkedIn. Give me a little note if you're on LinkedIn, just so I know where you're coming from, but it's always helpful. And great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Kate. Bianca, I will finish with you. Any final words? How can we connect with you? Loved getting to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure thing. I think my biggest piece of parting advice would just be like, we're living in a world where there's a ton of education and information out there. You get on LinkedIn, there's tons of threads and advice being thrown your way. The biggest thing would just be to take what's relevant for you and don't be afraid to just get started. You can spend a lot of time on research and just overthinking things, and you'll kind of scare yourself out of the product that you're trying to push to market. Don't be afraid. Like just get started. Push out what you can. You communicate what you can about the product and go incrementally. Take that jump. It's well worth it. And I think entrepreneurship is an amazing space to be in for women. I've been really enjoying the panel with Kate and Anu. I'm looking forward to learning more about all of you. I'm on LinkedIn at Iridescent Nostalgia. I know that's pretty hard, but I'll drop a link somewhere during the live chat. Let me know if you have any questions, and don't be afraid to take the jump.
Yes. Oh, that's a beautiful note to leave on. Well, I have really enjoyed our time. Thank you, ladies, for this amazing discussion. Hope you all had a fun hour here with us, learning a little bit more about funding and founding companies. I'm TJ Woodberry. You can follow me with what I'm doing with Funded by Women. We're at Funded by Women. You can find me TJ at Funded by Women, WOMXN. And I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, the socials. Thank you again. And next is Q&A. All right, bye.
Ready for live Q&A with our speaker? Join us in the live stream now. Scroll down to find the link in our sub-session box below. Ready for live Q&A with our speaker? Join us in the live stream now. Scroll down to find the link in our subsession box below.